Dear student, I am Dr. Prakash Mungli, Professor in Biochemistry. So in this video, I will be explaining you a general mechanism of absorption, transport and storage of fat-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins, there are 4 of them, vitamin A, D, E and K, or if there are any other precursors of these fat-soluble vitamins, especially for vitamin A. So we have pro-vitamin A activity, for vitamin D we have pro-vitamin D activity and all that. Since all these vitamin A, D, E, K, they are fat soluble, so the digestion and absorption of all these fat soluble vitamins, they go hand in hand with dietary lipids, digestion, absorption and transport process. Now, as you see here in the figure, fat soluble vitamins, they will become part of micelles, because as the fat soluble vitamin in our diet, because they are fat soluble, so they coalesce with one another to make a lipid mass, and they basically associated with one another with the lipid mass, with the dietary lipids, and then they need to be digested. So some of the fat soluble vitamins, if they have any fatty acid attached to it with the ester bond, that has to be separated. So it has to undergo a simple digestion process there, and then they need to be absorbed. How exactly that happens? As you see here, see the lipids which are present in the intestine, so they basically associate with the bile acids and bile salts. So micelles formation will happen here. Basically, if a lipid is there here which has a dietary lipid, along with that there will be vitamin A, D, E, K associated with that, and these dietary lipids, they will be coated with bile acids and bile salts. Note that bile acids and bile salts, these are amphipathic molecules. They will have polar head and they will have non-polar tail. Now the non-polar tail is going to interact with the lipid molecule, and the polar head which has got a polarity, so the polar head can interact with the water molecule within the intestinal lumen and keep this lipid mass as soluble. And the molecule that I am writing here is referred as micelle. Okay, and that's what is written here. So the micelle carry fat soluble vitamins and dietary fat to the brush border for absorption process. So what actually happens within this micelle? So within the micelle, so there will be a digestion of some of the fat soluble vitamins, especially if they have any fatty acid attached with the ester bond, and those bonds will be released. And so that means fatty acid is separated from a fat soluble vitamin, and then now these fat soluble vitamins, they are ready for absorption into the cell. So for all that, they need to be part of micelles, means they will be associated with bile acids and bile salts, and later they will make a micelles, and micelles will go and interact with the brush border epithelium of duodenum and jejunal epithelium, and then this simple diffusion will happen. So once the vitamin A, D, E, K in their simpler form enters into the enterocyte, so that's what is shown here. So it is now entering into the enterocyte. Once it is inside the enterocyte, so they will undergo re-esterification process. That means fatty acid which was released from the fat soluble vitamin, so that will be reattached within the enterocyte. So why it was removed in the initial stage in the lumen of the intestine? Because with the addition of fatty acid to a fat soluble vitamin, so it becomes a complex structure, so that has to be simplified, and that simplification needs ester bond hydrolysis, and then absorption goes on. Once it is inside, it will be re-esterified, and re-esterified, now it is a complete vitamin there with the fatty acid attached, and that has to be transported. So how these fat soluble vitamins which are absorbed with the help of micelles after undergoing a re-esterification within the enterocyte, So how they are transported out of the intestine to the liver or any other tissues. And there comes a molecule called chylomicron. So the chylomicrons, chylomicron has got a protein called ApoB48. This ApoB48 protein, it is synthesized in the intestine and it will be loaded with the fat soluble vitamins, dietary lipids like triacylglycerol, cholesterol ester, phospholipid. All these lipid molecules will be loaded onto ApoB48 to make chylomicron. So ApoB48 is the one that is converted into chylomicron, and this chylomicron containing fat soluble vitamins and dietary lipids, they are transported out of the enterocytes into the lymphatics first, because chylomicrons are bigger in size, so they need a bigger fenestration which are found in the lymphatics. So they enter into the lymphatics. From the lymphatics they will find their way into systemic circulation, and in the systemic circulation chylomicrons will undergo metabolism and later they will end up in the liver, and that's how vitamin A, D, K along with the dietary lipids, they are carried from the intestine all the way to the liver, and that's what is. So once they go into the liver, so what will happen? So as they go into the liver, these fat soluble vitamins along with the dietary lipids which are offloaded into the liver, and in the liver most of these fat soluble vitamins, so they are stored except vitamin E. So vitamin A, vitamin D and vitamin K can be stored in the liver. Vitamin E is generally stored over the cell membranes and in the adipose tissue. So whenever body needs these vitamins, so vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K are released from the liver. They will be carried by specific transporters, and from there they will be taken up by different tissues, which are the tissue that needs these vitamins. So that's how fat soluble vitamins are carried from the intestine to the liver, and from the liver they will in the liver they will be stored for a moment until the demand comes from the other tissues. Especially vitamin A, D and K are stored mainly in the liver. Vitamin E is stored in the adipose tissue and over the cell membrane. Okay, so this is how vitamin A, D, E, Ks are absorbed in the intestine and they are transported out of the intestine into the lymphatics as chylomicrons. Make sure you remember that. And the formation of chylomicron needs ApoB48, and once chylomicron enters into the lymphatics, it will find its way into the systemic circulation, and from there it will go to the liver, and in the liver contents will be offloaded, and vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K are stored in the liver. Vitamin E is stored in the adipose tissue and over cell membrane, and they will participate in their metabolic process. So in all this particular thing, so there is a role of bile acids and bile salts in absorption of fat soluble vitamins, and also there is a requirement of emulsification process. Emulsification is breakdown of large lipid droplets into simple lipid molecules. So that aids in the digestion of fat soluble vitamins. So now, so one more time, so they are absorbed in the small intestine. So fat soluble vitamins are absorbed in the small intestine along with the digested dietary lipids. Bile acids and bile salts are helping in the micelle formation, which are necessary for fat soluble absorption process. And inside the enterocyte, some of the fat soluble vitamins will be re-esterified, and this especially happens in the endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Always remember that. So smooth endoplasmic reticulum is the place where re-esterification process will go on. Always remember this point. So, and then inside the enterocyte, so these fat soluble vitamins along with the dietary lipids will be loaded onto ApoB48 to make chylomicrons, and the chylomicrons, since they are bigger in size, so they will enter into the lymphatics, and chylomicrons contains vitamin A, D, E, K. So now, and when it goes to the liver, so these vitamins are stored in the liver, especially vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K. Vitamin E is stored in the adipose tissue and also over cell membrane. So this is how the transport of vitamin absorption and transport and storage of vitamin A, D, E, K will be going on in our body. So here in this this table, it will show the recommended dietary intake of vitamin A, D, E, Ks, and also it is showing some of the good sources of vitamin A, D, E, K. So vitamin A recommended dietary allowance is 3,500 international units for men and 2,500 international unit for women. So deficiency of vitamin A can lead to night blindness, can lead to skin lesions, it can lead to decrease in the immune mechanism. There are, and also it is responsible for maintenance of epithelial growth and development. So accordingly, the signs and symptoms will appear there. So liver, kidney, butter, fat, oils, egg yolk, green leafy vegetables are the good sources of vitamin A. Coming to vitamin D, in normal recommended dietary allowance for vitamin D is 400 international units. Deficiency of vitamin E in children, it lead to rickets. In the adults, it will lead to osteomalacia. And vitamin D is synthesized in the skin. So upon exposure to sunlight, so vitamin D can be synthesized, and also it is available from saltwater fish, liver, egg yolk, butter. That's the source of vitamin D. Coming to vitamin E, 10 to 30 milligram of vitamin E is the recommended dietary allowance there. So deficiency of vitamin E, it will lead to damage to the cell membrane, like red blood cell membrane damages, giving rise to hemolysis. There will be damage to muscle membrane, giving rise to rhabdomyolysis. There can be damage to the nerve cell membrane, giving rise to peripheral neuropathy signs. So vegetables are good sources of vitamin E, and also vegetable oils, nuts and seeds are the good sources of vitamin E. Vitamin K requirement is 1 microgram per kg body weight, and deficiency of vitamin K can lead to bleeding tendencies. So bleeding, basically the hemorrhages, because vitamin K is involved in blood clotting mechanism, so that will be decreased, so there is a tendency for bleeding. And vitamin K is richly available in green leafy vegetables. Okay, so these are some of the general points about digestion, absorption, transport and storage of fat soluble vitamins. Thank you.